Alright, you guys, today in this beautiful sunlight, we're going to do a last episode of Reversed Mother Wound. So, in all the previous episodes, we've covered distortions within feminine energy. So, an healthy way of expression of feminine energy that if and when it is present within a mother, it creates a mother wound. So we approach mother wound from a different angle in this series, right? So not I want to heal my mother wound, but I want to make sure that I break generational trauma and I don't pass on the distortion within my feminine energy, not just onto my children, but future generations. Obviously, I know that some of you who were watching this series, it was helpful as well to understand your own mother wound and the distortion within the energy of your mother. But the key focus was to understand the subtle distortions that actually pass on that trauma. Today I want to cover the last element that is not so much a discussion about the distortion, because that portion of the distortion we already covered, but I want to really explain why feminine energy is responsible for forming healthy relationships. What does it mean? It means that if you carry, again, remember I've mentioned this to you many times in this series, and I say this all the time, for any wound that we talk about, there is a spectrum of that wound that we carry, because we all of us, you would need to really be born into a divine feminine mother and divine feminine father in divine union kind of a child, not to carry these core wounds. They are attached to our physical existence and they activate in childhood through certain traumas and experiences. But we all carry core wounds, mother wound, father wound, abandonment, betrayal, worthiness, and so on and so forth. But within a spectrum of that wound, right? So for some of us, certain wounds are very mild and very subtle, whereas for others, these are the key points that they need to address on their healing journey and journey of maturity, of the ego, of the soul. So today I want you to understand why it is the feminine energy and this distortion within the feminine energy somewhere on the spectrum that makes us incapable of forming healthy relationships. And unfortunately, most people, without them even realizing, they at some point, for certain relationships, maybe not all, maybe not always, but at certain point, they do introduce distortion subconsciously into their relationships. So there's either codependence. You guys know that I say this all the time. 80% of people who are in romantic relationships are connected to a karmic, and if you are connected to a karmic, by default you form relationships based on codependency, because in order not to form codependency you have to be whole, and if you achieve wholeness you're no longer interested in any kind of karmic relationship, just true soul connection. So there's codependency. There's a lot of confusion in a healthy flow reciprocity, healthy give and take, which relationships are two-way street, which relationships are supposed to be a one-way street. People struggle with that as well. And people struggle with understanding the subtle difference between we should support each other in relationships, but we should not drag someone who is completely out of resonance and completely on a different page as we are, on a different level of consciousness as we are, right? So today I want to explain to you why how we form relationships goes back to mother wound. So we're going to start from explaining how the feminine energy and through which qualities of healthy feminine energy we are taught in childhood to form healthy relationships, and then we're going to explore how those healthy relationships should look like. So let's give it a start. Why it is the feminine energy that teaches us to form healthy relationships. And remember, just in case this is the first episode that you're watching, I've already covered this, that when we talk about these qualities, we talk about embodiment. So this is not just what your mother told you to do and taught you to do, but your mother can only teach you what she herself does. We teach for embodiment, right? This is the whole point of this mother wound, reverse mother wound series, because many women think that I know that my mother had that, right? I know that this is a bad thing, not loving myself, not having boundaries, not having self-worth. So I'm gonna say and speak things to my child, my daughter, my son, so they love themselves better than I do, so they form better relationships than I do. But if you don't do that through embodiment of your own frequency, of your own lessons, of your own healing, there are no words that you could speak to your child that will teach them to do this properly. This is the biggest misconception. I've done a whole episode about this. I think it's the previous one. So you can go ahead and watch that for context. So why it's the feminine energy? First thing, and I've mentioned this in the first episodes, is that the key thing that the feminine energy teaches us in our life, right, is self-love and self-worth, right? So through self-love, proper unconditional self-love and self-worth, I know I'm worthy, I love myself, no matter what everyone says, no matter what's going on in this world, no matter how much I make, no matter how I look, my worth is unconditional because I'm an eternal soul living this experience through human body. My worth and my self-love have no condition. This is what healthy feminine energy teaches us, and unfortunately most people don't embody. Again, it's going to be a spectrum, but most people struggle with that. It's one of the most popular wounds these days, self-worthiness and self-love. And we've covered this in so many videos, and I've covered this in this series as well, that many people think that they love themselves because they understand self-love on a very shallow level, right? But when you truly love yourself, you achieve wholeness. You achieve wholeness. You go back to source. You connect to source, right? You only form healthy relationships. You want best for yourself. You believe in yourself. You trust in yourself. You have healthy ambition, and so on and so forth. So that is the first thing that the mother teaches us, that the feminine energy teaches us. You are worthy. You are wonderful. You deserve all the best. It is your birthright to walk this earth and thrive in this life. And when that is taught to a child, self-love and self-worth, they are able to develop the very first and the very most important relationship that they will ever develop, aside obviously the parents that exist from the beginning. It's the bubble of feminine and masculine energy. We've touched on that in previous episodes, which is the relationship with self. And this is the key. It is the mother, it is the feminine energy in your life that through embodiment of her own self-worth, of her own self-love, of her own relationship with self that is deep, that is profound, that is full of trust, that is enough, teaches you to develop healthy relationship with yourself. And it is the mother that teaches you through releasing codependency to have a healthy relationship with self and healthy management of your emotions. We've talked about this in one of the episodes when I talked about, especially mothers of boys, how important it is for a mother at a specific age to take a step back and stop treating your child as a little boy, hopeless boy, but as a young man, to start feeding his healthy masculine energy, right? It's a whole different topic, and we've addressed that, but it is the behavior of the mother when she's healthy, when she's divine feminine, when her feminine energy is balanced, to, again, through embodiment, teach you how to in a healthy way. Trust is key of that relationship, to interact with self. I don't need that mother to constantly be above me. I don't need that mother to constantly tell me what to do. I don't need anyone. I can trust myself. Healthy relationship with self, again, is something that your mother teaches you through her healthy embodiment of self-love, self-worth, and true divine feminine. And that is the first relationship that you will ever learn properly or in a distorted way. Now, this is very important, because if you do not have if you do not have a healthy relationship with self, you won't have the foundation and a very basic tool to form healthy relationships with others. And remember, we're talking about all kinds of relationships. So friendships, and we'll in the second part I'll explain to you a little bit of the types of relationships. But when you say relationships, romantic relationships, friendships, relationships with your family, with your coworkers, with your neighbors, with your communities, with anyone, right? The self relationship, the relationship with self, is a foundation for developing healthy ways of forming relationships, which means that you are capable of creating relationships that are secure attachment style, which is you're neither avoidant or anxious, and most people again are somewhere on the spectrum. Those that are very subtle distortion oftentimes don't realize that, but very few people are actually secure relationship, secure attachment style. Again, it requires either a lot of healing or a divine feminine mother, divine feminine father as parents. So only when you have a healthy relationship with self, you can have a secure attachment style, and you can understand that in this world, when you are whole, when you are enough, when you love yourself, when you believe in your self-worth and you trust yourself, that you don't really need anyone. You don't really need anyone to fulfill your life, to fulfill your destiny, to thrive. But relationships are such a beautiful part of human existence. One of the key things that we come here for, that we create this illusion of separation from source to live through this human existence and connect to others, right? And with that, you also understand that not every relationship is same. There are two key things that we need to understand when forming relationships. But before I explain them to you, I also want to mention that the reason, I think I've explained it enough, but there's one more point that I want you to understand why relationship with self is so important to form healthy relationships. It's something that became a cliche in spiritual world, and everybody seems to talk about this, and it's part of every oracle deck, and it's part of every spiritual teacher and person talking about relationships. But really very few people actually understand the very depths of that concept, what it really means. And it is the concept of mirroring, right? So people say this, that the relationships mirror you, and it's a mirror, and then the other person. But very few people actually understand that another person, whether it's a good, positive, or negative, again, just an illusion, positive and negative emotion, another person has no power to make you feel a specific way. All that you feel towards another person, whether that's this positive feeling, so you feel like you love somebody, you feel like you admire somebody, all the negative things, you feel like someone is dismissing you, you feel like someone is humiliating you, this person is not doing anything. These feelings exist within you. People can only trigger, this is why we say mirror, but maybe it's better understood. People can only trigger, pull your strings, right? They can only pull your strings, but that string has to exist within you. So if you don't really, this is why we say, if you don't really love yourself, if you don't really have self-love, if you don't embody love, if you don't have healthy understanding of what the frequency of love is through self-love, you won't ever love anyone. It will be just an illusion. You will be reflecting something that is missing, that's not love. Similarly, when you feel that someone is humiliating you, and that someone is abusing you and making you feel small, they only pulling your string. They only mirroring something that exists within you. And that pulling the string, that mirror effect, the trigger effect, however you want to call it, is the reason why, if you do not have a perfectly beautiful, based on wholeness, self-love, self-worth, unconditional, trust, full of trust relationship with yourself, you won't be able to build healthy, mature, beautiful relationship with anyone else. Now, moving to the second part of what I want to discuss today and help you guys to understand is those two elements that I've mentioned that come from self, and that self comes from feminine energy, mother, or a mother figure. It doesn't necessarily have to be a biological mother. It's the feminine and masculine energy in childhood. We've talked about this in previous episodes. There are two things that we have to understand in relationships, and two things that many people fail to understand. Number one is that not every relationship at every given moment of time necessarily needs to be a two-way street. There are relationships that are a two-way street, and there are relationships that are a one-way street. And in order to know that, and in order to understand that, you have to have self-worth. Why? Because there will be relationships in your life, and I've discussed this with you guys, so maybe to give you a little bit of context, a while ago I've done a video about reciprocity, healthy reciprocity, that when we talk about reciprocity flow, so when you give something out there to someone, to the universe, we say that this energy will always be returned back to you, which is true. What you give out, what you put out is returned back to you, but not necessarily by same person in the same way and in the same moment, right? So when I give you love today, or I fell in love with someone and I'm giving this person love, despite the fact that they're ignoring me, that they're avoidant, that they're not seeing this love, not appreciating this love, but I'm giving this love. And I trust that the kindness and the love that I offer to them will be returned to me in a shape or form. Might not be necessarily by this person or in this exact same time, right? So that's something that we need to understand as a context. So some relationships are one-way street. So it will happen in life that you will meet someone that will give a lot to you, and this is how it's meant to be, that you won't have to give this energy back to this person. You will have to be grateful. You should see it. If you're healthy, you will be grateful and you will see it. But you will understand that this kind of relationship is a one-way street. So for example, this may be a relationship with your parents. This is not like we should respect them, we should cherish them, but especially when we're children. It's a cliche saying, but it's true. You brought me to this world, right? It's a one-way street relationship that many parents don't understand, and they want something from their child. They want the child to perform. They want the child to do specific thing, to act certain way. We've talked about this in previous episodes. It's a one-way street relationship. Similarly, with your healer, when you have a healer, right, you can go ahead and offer something to that healer in a sense of, you're going to pay for sessions, you're going to be grateful, you can bring chocolates, you can bring a thank you card, you can leave a positive feedback, whatever it is, but it's a one-way street. So when you come to me on sessions, I am there for you. You don't have to reciprocate, because those are those relationships when you can completely release and allow someone to hold space for you. And someone in life, someone will just help you. It may be a simple thing that your neighbor will fix something in your house, or someone on the street will help you when your car breaks down, and you don't necessarily have to pay them back. Because that flow, you will pay that energy back in a different moment, in a different place. Maybe you will be able to help someone. Maybe one day you will repay that kindness to a stranger that won't be able to repay that for you. And it's absolutely okay. There are many situations and relationships that are a one-way street. And in order to be able to function healthy in those relationships, in order to be able to receive something from someone physically or energetically without immediately giving anything in return, just saying thank you, I see you, I appreciate you, you need a healthy feminine energy. And that's something that your mother teaches you, because it is the feminine energy that is responsible for receiving and feeling worthy enough to receive. I feel worthy enough for you, my healer, my neighbor, my parent, my whatever, the specific maybe. I feel worthy for you to hold space for me, to help me, to give me something energetically, physically, your time, your attention, your advice, your wisdom, without me energetically giving you anything in return. I feel worthy, right? So in order to be able to have that one-way street relationship, you need strong feminine energy within, which is self-love, self-worthiness. Now, some relationships will be a two-way street. Friendships and romantical relationships. And this is where most people struggle because they don't understand what it really means. And I flagged this to you before when I said that there's a fine line between I give you, you give me, this is two-way street, we hold space for each other, and dragging someone and not leaving, saying that you need to support your friend and support your partner despite the fact that there's no reciprocity, okay? So when we talk about that first type of relationship, so that one-way street, important thing to understand is that on those relationships, you can be on a completely different level than this person. You can have different levels of maturity. You can have different levels of consciousness. You can have different levels of understanding of self and of life. Because this is usually that relationship when someone is that puzzle piece for us to get somewhere or do something, right? So again, in the physical, it may be a simple thing. Your neighbor knows how to fix your sink, and in life, it can be your healer knows how to grow, right? So you don't have to be on the same level. However, most people don't understand, and this is why most people form karmic relationships. And again, it loops back to lack of self-love, lack of self-worth, and a lack of secure attachment style, is that when we talk about true friendships and romantical relationships, this other person must be on the same level. Your romantical partner and your friends, your closest friends, your group of closest friends that you spend time with, they can be different. They can be, we're all different and we're all unique, but they cannot be on a completely different level of consciousness, of self-awareness, of emotional maturity, of overall maturity, because this relationship won't work. Romantical relationships and friendships, close and intimate relationships, are designed to be a two-way street. So when you love yourself, when you value yourself, when you trust yourself, again, going back to that mother energy, when you have healthy relationship with yourself, secure attachment style, you feel the wholeness on a level of self, you understand that. So you understand that I met someone that could be a great friend. I feel pulled toward this person. I met someone that, I feel like this is my soul connection and I could be with this person. But they're not on the same level. I'm saying something to them. They're not understanding. My consciousness is in a different place. My maturity is on a different level. How could we be friends? How could we be partners? We cannot. When I love myself with love and light, I step away. Because when you love yourself, you fully trust that if someone is really meant for you and there's no reciprocity, there's no resonance from the same level, they will either catch up sooner or later, or they're not meant for you now or in this lifetime, and you walk away. We don't use emotions, love, feeling of connection, feeling of soul connection as an excuse to stay in a relationship when there's no reciprocity. Because again, friendship and romantic relationship, you have to be in the same level because it's a two-way street. And if you are not on the same level of maturity and consciousness, the emotions, the effort, the energy, the time that you will give to this person, they won't be able to give it back. And people don't understand that in partnership, in friendship, it is absolutely okay that it's specific chapter, a specific time. It may be a few weeks, it may be a few months, sometimes it may even up to a year. One of those people can be going through something very difficult and challenging, and this is where you can hold space for them. This is when you can give a little bit more than you receive. It's absolutely normal. But there's a difference between that and between dragging someone who is just refusing to meet you where you are. You grow, you heal, you expand, you have, again, your maturity and your consciousness on a specific level, and this person is just not meeting you where you are. And the only reason people stay in these relationships, which is most people, most relationships, unfortunately, right, is because they don't have enough self-love, enough of that lone wolf sovereign energy that I teach you guys always, to walk away. Because when we stay in relationships, when there's no healthy reciprocity, so it is supposed to be a two-way street, we are supposed to be on the same page, on the same level of consciousness, on the same level of maturity, and I find excuses that are always excuses to stay in this relationship. There's only one reason we do that. One reason. It's the lack within. It's the lack of self-love. We feel void, emptiness, lack of something. We don't have the wholeness of our experience, of our persona. So we seek it from another person. And sometimes it can be the healer wound, that we want to save someone, that we want to help them to be a better person. Sometimes we're just afraid to be alone. We're just afraid to start over. This plethora of shadows and options that people do that. But all of them will link back to mother wound. Because it is the mother that teaches you self-love, self-worth, unconditionally trusting yourself, building foundation, feeling whole on the level of self, and not having to seek toxic, codependent, from below of your level relationships. And again, remember, when you talk about levels, it's never about this person is worse and this person is better. It's about just the spiral. We're in a different place of the spiral. How could we resonate? I see so many people in relationships when one person, for example, has depth, is ready to expand consciousness, is ready to be in touch with their feelings, and the other person is completely dormant, numbed, armored, yet they stay in a relationship. If you cannot talk with your partner and with your friend vulnerably about absolutely everything, your deepest, wildest dreams, your desires, your passions, your quirkiest thoughts, your maybe psychic visions, everything, literally everything, in those two-way relationships with friends and romantical partners, we should be able to share the wholeness of us. If you're not able to do that, it's because there's a lack of self-love and self-worth within you, that you're numbing through that relationship. And the final thing that I want to mention, because remember we mentioned two things. So one was the understanding of a two-way and a one-way street relationship, which are different kinds of relationships. But the second thing is sort of a building the intimacy with someone and understanding, and it's another thing that people don't understand, because again, it is the feminine energy, mother wound, that teaches you healthy boundaries. Healthy boundaries are a natural byproduct of self-love and self-worthiness, right? And people sort of have this misunderstanding of, and I talk about this a lot when I talk about my dears and my loves, when I talk about brain freeze. In my readings, sometimes I mention this to you guys, that people think that not showing the whole of you from day one equals wearing a mask. But it's not true, right? It's not true. And I've explained this many times in my readings, that a healthy person, again, self-love, foundation of self-worth, understands that when I meet someone day one, I'm not gonna, even if I feel this love and pull and connection and I feel like they're everything, I'm not gonna go from a 0 to 100, and I'm not gonna give them full access to my energy, because I have to feel into their intention, right? But many people misunderstand that, because there's a difference between I love myself, so I'm gonna give access to my energy gradually as it is reciprocated, right? Or I'm afraid to be vulnerable, so I'm gonna armor up, right? So how we imagine that you have this energy flow within you, right?